Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 44 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Here we go.
Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Have you got a health issue that just won't go away no matter what you try? Then welcome to the Revive Yourself podcast, where we reveal the secrets to long-lasting health by getting to the root cause of problems that no one else is talking about. So you can have more energy, clear skin, healthier hair, a leaner physique, more confidence, and most importantly, do the things you love and live the life you deserve. Here's your host, Ryan Martin.
So guys, welcome to another episode of the Revive Yourself podcast. Hope you're all doing well, and it's coming up to the festive season. In fact, when this airs, it may actually be the week of Christmas or thereabouts. Either way, hope you're having fun. I know recently we've been having some quite bad snow in London, in England, down south. But had a Christmassy feel, which was nice. But then, the ice is treacherous, so I actually quite enjoy it when it goes away. But as for the podcast, I had some great interviews, Chris Master John and Margolis, and the things I'll be doing to avoid the flu this year. Everyone seemed to have really enjoyed that, been getting some great feedback on both on the YouTube channel, over email, even people on Facebook, so that's great. And as always guys, hit me up on Facebook at Facebook/Revive Yourself and Natural Health, or we're on Instagram at Revive_Yourself. And we've got the YouTube channel as well. And people have been loving as well the free 4-day mini course. Get lots of people into that, really getting great information, loving it. And you can add that if you go to www.reviveyourself.co. You can join that there. Which anyone with chronic disease, especially a gut issue or skin issue, that's going to be brilliant for you. In fact, everyone, it's going to be great for everyone. Just so I just generally get lots of people asking about gut issues and skin issues. It's just what I deal a lot with, as well as actually a lot of people at the moment. Chronic fatigue seems to be quite a big one as well. Anyway, guys, today's interview, we've got some crackers lined up for you, but today's interview is with Dr. Ritamarie, and we'll be talking all about brain fog, which is going to be, most people experience brain fog in some way, shape or form, and they forget where their keys are, they forget what the name of a restaurant is, they walk into a room and they forget what's going on, they get this foggy feeling over their head, in their brain, and they can't remember what they were meant to do or where they're meant to be going. So this is going to be great for you. We're going to go into why this happens. Actually, Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo, she had her own experience with this and went into her health journey, and lots of other things you can do to stop it, things that are going to help you alleviate the symptoms, and everything in between. So, brain fog, and to be honest with you, like everything, it's whatever your genetic predisposition to disease is, this is one of the things you will get. If your brain or memory is weak, then you need to be taking special care of your lifestyle. So, without further ado, guys, here she is. Here's Dr. Ritamarie. Enjoy it, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 44 of the Revive Yourself podcast. Today we have got a great interview with Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo. Is that how I'm saying it right?
Loscalzo, really close.
Brilliant. Yeah, Loscalzo, brilliant. And all the way from Austin, Texas. Yeah, is that correct?
Yes, all the way from Austin, Texas, over the pond.
Perfect. How is Austin today?
Oh my gosh, everybody should have weather like this. It's beautiful. It's going to be in the high 70s and sunny and perfect, almost December weather.
Well, yeah, perfect December weather. I wish I could say the same for it over here. Actually, today it was actually pretty nice, but it's just about the time when it starts to get dark now, which kind of sucks. I've got to be honest with you, in the winter time. But it's nice to hear someone's got nice weather in the world. So you're in Austin, Texas. I think. Do you know Doug Kaufman? I think he's quite near you.
Doug Kaufman. No, I don't know that I know him.
All right, he's got a book out, a great book called The Fungus Link, and he talks all about fungus. It's really interesting. Maybe you should guys could maybe. Well, they don't say you guys, but yeah, I think he's in the area of Austin, Texas, or around that area. So surprised you don't know him, but it's all good. So today, guys, we're going to be talking to Ritamarie all about brain fog. For those of you that don't know, she's got www.drritamarie.com, and she's also the founder of the Institute of Nutritional Endocrinology, if I can speak. She's actually got a best-selling book out as well called Unstoppable Health. So, when I was going around your site, Rita, I looked at I think it was your mission statement. I really liked it. It said, "We are committed to transforming our broken disease management system into a true healthcare system focused on finding and solving the root cause of all health challenges. Our goal is to reach and transform those clients who need help most and those practitioners who most want to help." I really like that. And we're going to be talking about brain fog. But just before we get to that, I think your mission statement really rings true because you yourself went through your own health issues, and that's where you got into this. Is that correct?
That's totally correct. It was a long time ago, but yes, totally correct.
Cool.
And I was disillusioned with the medical system.
Right. I think I've heard you speak before, and you said it's around your early 20s. I mean, I went through my own about 17 to 22, so I know what it's like going through it at that time. But just for the audience out there, can you just explain exactly what you went through and how you got through it?
Yeah. So, I was always a high achiever, valedictorian in high school and sports and the whole bit. And then when I got into into college, it was similar. And that's what I think when I really noticed the health challenges was when I started to get really bad headaches. I mean, god awful headaches. And I went to the clinic at school and they put me on Valium. 21-year-old or 20-year-old has headaches and they put her on Valium. They don't ask anything about my diet, my lifestyle, my stress levels. They just put me on Valium. Couldn't stand it, couldn't get out of bed, so I decided to just live on aspirin for the headaches. And then fast forward a few years, so I dealt with that and my habits were god awful. I see, you're into drinking green juice and I am now too, but green juice wasn't even on the horizon for me at that point. So when I first got my first job, I was very ambitious. And I would meet with customers and we'd always be eating, the rich lunches and drinking wine. But I started to have this feeling like I couldn't connect with the person I was speaking to. Like there was this fog. It was long before anybody was talking brain fog, but that's what it felt like to me. It's like there was this fog and their words would be slowly coming through this thick haze. Mm-hmm. And I had to really focus. And I was smart. This was somebody who was valedictorian and did really well in school. And I was struggling to make connections with people because I couldn't focus on their words. And I was like, this is strange, but didn't think anything of it, kept living my life. And what really, I started having sinus problems, went to the doctor, they put me on steroids, they did sinus surgery, the whole bit. And all the while I'm thinking this is just normal stuff. And then I had doubling over stomach pain. And nobody could figure it out. They went through all these tests, said maybe it's an ulcer, here's some ulcer medication. Drink lots of milk and eat lots of cheese and ice cream, which I love the idea of eating lots of ice cream, by the way. And that'll make it better. And it didn't. And they finally said you don't have an ulcer, but continue to take the ulcer medication for the rest of your life. And I was at that point blown away. And I just said, could it be my diet? As visions of Twinkies and Pringles danced in my head. And they said no. And I challenged that and I started researching. Fast forward, rewind, a couple of years of up and down, back and forth, trying to figure out what was on. I, discovered this different way of eating and detoxification and food allergies and this whole bit. And it took me like 2 or 3 years on my own to research, to struggle, to try to figure this out. Again, this is back in the 80s. This was not, in modern times where there was an internet and people aware of health. And I finally got my health together and I said, this shouldn't be so hard for people. And that's when I quit my very well-paying job back then and went back to school and got my degrees in chiropractic and acupuncture and nutrition and herbal medicine. And I wanted to make it easy for people. I was just disillusioned. Nobody was looking for a cause. Nobody was looking for why is this happening? It's just how do we cover it up? And I see that all over. I see it still in the medical system, even, decades later, where there's so many podcasts and so much information out there. There's still majority of doctors are out there dispensing pills and throwing darts in the dark and putting Band-Aids on things instead of finding true solutions.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest with you. I actually had a little conversation with Terry Tillard about this the other day. I don't know if you know Terry. He's someone who is into natural health as well. He's a practitioner himself. And I was saying sometimes, we go through it and we deal with clients and we say the same stuff over and over again. And sometimes it gets to the point. I was listening to an interview the other day, and it was just like a doctor laughing about how diet makes a difference. And most of the time I'm just like really relaxed about it. Yesterday I was just like, sometimes it just infuriates me to the point I just want to get the TV and lob it through the wall, because it's like, how many times do these people just ignore this information that's in front of them? And as you say, in the age of information, it's almost like ignorance is a choice, and it does. And so you went through your own. I mean, like most of us that I know who've been through this. Who are on this journey and helping lots of people. We've all been through our own illness and went to the doctors, as you said, medications. I myself went through it. Steroids, I know what that feels like. It's not good. And Valium, fantastic. I mean, who doesn't need some Valium in their life? If you hadn't have changed the way you approached it and what you thought, where do you think you'd be right now? I mean, for example, if you'd have carried on taking everything that they'd given you, where do you think you'd have been right now?
Right now, I mean, I could easily be in my grave. My mother died at age 56. When I passed her in age, I celebrated. It was like, okay, and I passed her 5 years ago. And I could easily have been. I have a sister. She got lymphoma in her 40s and died. My dad died 2 years after my mom. So my genes suck, basically, and I lived their lifestyle, right? Their same lifestyle that I learned growing up. Had I continued that, I could easily be where they are now. I honestly, or if I wasn't, I would be debilitated. I would be, on blood pressure medication and on cholesterol medication and, probably on anti-inflammatories and maybe, taking laxatives every day to keep my bowels moving. I can imagine. At the time they wanted me on the ulcer medication. What does ulcer medication? Proton pump inhibitors, things that suppress stomach acid. I would have been not absorbing my protein, not absorbing my minerals. So I'd be mineral deficient. I may have osteoporosis, maybe a couple of broken bones. There's so many possibilities of where my life could have gone had I not made that turn, had I not made that decision that maybe there's something I can do about this. Let me find out, and been open to the possibility and not so married to my food. I was a food addict. I was not just somebody who liked to eat and, but I never allowed myself to get overweight because I was too vain. So I would eat and then fast and then eat and then fast and overeat, like to the point of explosion. Mm-hmm. So I had serious food problems. So it wasn't like I was just somebody who didn't care about food and was naturally thin and changing my diet was easy. It wasn't. But it was so important to me to get my health back and feel good that I didn't care. I could eat cardboard if that's what I had to do for the rest of my life. I would. That was what I was willing to do because it mattered so much to me. To get my brain back, to get my energy back. Back then, I didn't know I was fatigued because I was on 10 cups of black tea and a whole bunch of Diet Coke every day. So I didn't even know I was tired. Yeah. I just medicated myself. Now I haven't touched caffeine in 35 years, and I'm bursting with energy all hours of the day or night.
You sent shivers down my spine with a few different things you just said there, and I think you've just you've put some absolute statements out there. The fact that you said, just getting some feedback there, but it's okay. Gone now. Just the fact you said you could be in your grave, or you'd be maybe where you're. That story you just said, and all the drugs you'd be on, all the things you'd be going. That for most people, and it's something I want to talk about later on. That for most people is quite common. People think it's normal, but as I've heard you say, and I always say as well, just because it's normal doesn't mean that it's just that it's common. Doesn't mean that it's normal. And this is the thing that you're talking about there. All these medications just given out, and all the issues going on. And luckily, I think it was Chris Kresser said the other day, really good. It's something that we talk about quite a lot because we talk about epigenetics and stuff. But he had a really good core equation, which was your genetic predisposition plus modern lifestyle equals chronic illness.
Yep.
And I thought that was a really, really good, really, really simple thing. And that's basically what you're saying there. I mean, I've got heart disease in my family and cancer in my family. And if I'd gone down the same route as them, I know that's where it was leading. And for you to say that at your age, it's fantastic that you've passed your mum. And I'm glad that you're doing really well now. But it's just, I think it's important just to tell the listeners some of these stories, because sometimes they see us, or they might see like me or you or other people, and they think, oh my God, like, you look really good, or it's always been easy for you, but they don't understand the backstory. So I think it's always important to tell that story, because a lot of people with help, and people listening to this, they can relate to struggle, you know. So I think it's really important.
Absolutely.
So you refused the medication, and you started to learn. To learn. I mean, there was no internet back then. I'm guessing.
No. Yeah. This was the 80s.
Yeah, the 80s, right? So no internet. So how did you start to learn? I mean, in fact, I think didn't you go to? I mean, obviously libraries and stuff, but I think you've actually got a great story about why you went vegan. I think I'd really like to tell that. I think I've heard you mention it before on the show. It'd be really good for listeners to hear that. But I'm guessing to start with, you were in libraries and stuff.
Yeah, so it was definitely libraries, and I would get, stacks and stacks of anything I could read that was about nutrition. And quite frankly, there wasn't a lot like there is today. It was Carlton Fredericks and Diet for a Small Planet. I mean, there's so many books that are classics, but I learned and I went, oh, diet has something to do with it. And you start experimenting when you don't know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I'll remove this. I'll add that. So what I did was read one of these books and said, drink lots of milk and eat lots of whole wheat bread. So guess what happened when I did that?
Problems.
I got worse.
Yeah, problems. Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, okay, guess this isn't it. So I would experiment with leaving out this and leaving out that, and then food allergy tests were just coming around. But so I learned that way. I went to the bookstores. I got stacks of books. But my real turning point story was when I was sitting at a gas station or service station getting my tires changed and or rotated or whatever they do. And I was sitting there reading a book about nutrition because that's all I did. And this guy sat down next to me and goes, oh, you're interested in food and nutrition. And we started to talk. And he said, well, here's a book you need to read. And it was Fasting Can Save Your Life. Fasting can save your life. And I'm like, fasting can save your life? Like, what kind of crazy book is that? I said, oh, I've done fasting before. And this book here, this food allergy relief system, recommends a 5-day water fast. And then you add foods back. I said, I did it. And I felt fantastic when I fasted. But as soon as I started eating, I felt like really bad. And he was like, that's because you didn't fast long enough. And he's thinking about prolonged fasting. I'm like, this guy's a kook, but okay, whatever. He got my curiosity, gave me a card from, some place that took people in to do fasting. And I went and I got this book and I was fascinated. I was like, oh, I'm not sick. I'm toxic. My whole lifestyle from the time I was born, breathing cigarette smoke every single day of my life from, when I was in utero all the way up till I moved out when I was 22, I was breathing cigarette smoke every single day. That impacted me. I was eating, ranzoni and macaroni and cheese and drinking Kool-Aid every day. I was drinking milk, pasteurized, homogenized milk with sugar in it and eggs. That was my breakfast my mom would make for us in the blender. And I was doing this stuff for my whole life. Of course I was sick. It made sense to me. And so that turned me around, and I actually did an extended water fast and completely changed my diet around, and I never looked back. I mean, it was the magic bullet everybody was looking for, only it wasn't like I just had to take a pill to get it. I had to work to get it. Yeah. I had to store my body. I had to cleanse my body. I had to get rid of all that. Fortunately, I was only 25 at the time, 28 at the time, something like that. I was in my mid to late 20s at the time. And it made life different. And that's when I decided. It was during that fast that I said, I want to help people. I was reading about these different books and I want to help people. I want to truly help people. And that's when I decided to leave my job and go back and become a doctor and help people.
That's awesome. And you said it before, actually. You said like, if you'd eat cardboard if you had to, and that's the point. Most people, when they get to the point where the pain of change is less than the actual pain that they're going through, they will do that, and that's a really important point you've made there. When you went on this fasting, how long was your prolonged fast?
It was 28 days, actually.
Oh, really? Okay, that's a long time. I mean, and people don't. I would say this quite a lot often on the show. It's like, you see any animals in the wild, any problems they get, they take themselves away and they go and fast. And people don't realise water fasting for 3 days has been shown to regenerate the entire nervous system. It's huge for us. So 28 days, and obviously, guys, we're not saying go out there and fast 28 days. You need to. Yeah, exactly.
No.
You need to be under supervision. Yeah, supervision.
I was under supervision.
So was it just water, or did you have different powders?
Just water.
Just
Pure
water. Really? Okay.
See, what water does is there's cleanses you can do with juice and with powders and all that, and they're wonderful, and they're great for, living your life and doing the cleanse at the same time. But there's a very different state that your body gets into when it's just water. First of all, you go into ketosis pretty quickly, and ketosis is where you're burning, you're burning fat. You're not burning muscle. You're not using carbohydrate for fuel. You're burning fat. And there's a cleansing effect to that. I mean, it's not something I necessarily recommend people do for the rest of their life is stay in that state. But you get into that state and the body stops looking for external fuel and just starts burning up everything you have. And a lot of people with cancers even, they find that the tumors get eaten up as fuel during a fast. So, and I'm not recommending, it's not for everybody. And it's not something that you would do beyond 3-4 days, 5 days at the most on your own without supervision. Yeah,
because all the toxins, as we say, toxins are based in your fat stores. So if the body's starting eating up fats, then you're going to get a lot of toxins coming out. And so, did you go through a healing crisis at all at that time?
The first 4 days were miserable. 4 days were really challenging. After that, it was bliss. It was pure bliss. I mean, it was like I felt clear. Talk about brain fog. Talk about a good cure for brain fog. Holy cow. Just get all the crap out of your diet for a few days and the brain fog goes away. And it was remarkable. And I felt clear. I felt energetic, but my body didn't, if you know what I mean. My mind felt like all this stuff going around, and I'd go, I'm just going to go to the gym and work out. And I'd get halfway there and go, well, maybe I'll just take a rest first. Because I was thin to begin with. I was, 115 pounds when I started. Right. So I didn't have all this extra baggage on me to carry me through. So my body was it's getting smaller and smaller, and my metabolism went way down because I was conserving. I didn't have, an extra 30, 40 pounds to fuel me. So my body got into low, and if I'd done some of the lab work or whatever, I'd probably see that my thyroid was suppressed and all that, because that happens. The body is just trying to conserve, and that's what happens. Your metabolic rate goes down. Now, if you do it right and you refeed properly, then you bring it back, and you bring it back gradually, and my metabolism is perfectly fine right now.
So this is, back in the days, in the 1980s you did this. So, this centre, is it still around? that must have been pretty cutting edge for the time. Or when I say cutting edge, it was probably just going back to the basics, really.
It's going back to basics. So it wasn't. No, it's actually not. I think that the founder is gone, and is not there anymore. But there's several like that. Like right around after that, another one opened up, True North, which is Dr. Alan Goldhammer runs. And he's in Northern California. I was in more like a little bit south of there. And so he opened his center up, and he's, they're doing amazing work. And there's others like that as well. And he does much more rigorous supervision. The one that I went to didn't do rigorous supervision. They checked you out every day and made sure you were okay. But he actually has medical supervision, medical doctors on staff. He's a chiropractor. So it's really good to go to a place where they know and they can check your vitals and make sure that you're not going into a crisis, because some people, you just can't do extended fasting without making sure that things are right.
This would piss us out there. We talked about it quite a few times, but a healing crisis, guys, is sometimes when you go through it, you start detoxing, the body can start to flush things out a bit too quick, or things can be released too quick, and you can actually feel worse than what you did before. If we get a lot worse, we get better. They first noticed this, I think, with syphilis patients years ago. And so, if you've got skin issues, you can come out a lot worse, cysts, etc., or whatever it is. You can feel vomiting, you get flu-like symptoms. You can, I don't know, there's a million and one things. If you get a proper diet off, you can really feel sick. So it is important to do it under supervision. I know there's Dr. Robert Cesar, I think he's got a 28-day one in Hawaii. It's very, very interesting. But no, that's awesome. So your brain fog went, and so just for most people, brain fog. This is common for a lot of people. Forgetting their car keys, forgetting someone's name, where they went a few weeks ago. Is this normal to be foggy every now and again and to forget certain things, or is it just common?
It's common, and again, common and normal are not the same thing. It's very common. It's a normal response to stress. Let me just say that. Right. Because what happens when there's a lot of stress, and, in this world, if you don't have processes to protect yourself from stress, you can't avoid it. So it's when your body gets under stress and it releases a hormone called cortisol from the adrenal glands that affects a part of the brain called the hippocampus. It actually destroys it. It actually does damage to the hippocampus in the brain. And the hippocampus is that short-term memory. So the brain fog is often that there's a lot of cortisol and it's affecting the hippocampus. And the good news is there's processes to help bring those cortisol levels down and things you can learn to do in your daily life. And it's reversible. So there are ways, with certain nutrients that you can reverse it. But it is normal for somebody who's under severe stress to be foggy brained and not be able to actually do calculations, to do, higher level thinking. Cortisol actually suppresses the function of part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, right, which is where all the logical and the thought processes, the higher centers are, the humans part of the brain. And it activates part of the brain called the limbic system, mm-hmm, and the hindbrain, and I call it the lizard brain, that gets activated because you have to be in survival mode when you're under stress. Because if there's a bear chasing you, you need to be able to run and jump and get away. Whereas the other part of the brain I call the wizard brain. So you've got this playback of the wizard versus the lizard. And if you're under a lot of stress, and stress can be mental and emotional, but it can also be environmental with all the toxins. It can be food related with all, the refined foods, with the hydrogenated oils, things that affect the body in a stressful way. Those cause the limbic system to take over and the prefrontal cortex to be suppressed. So I always talk about ways that stressful events activate the lizard brain and suppress the wizard brain. And what we want to do is get into focused approaches that we can switch that in an instant.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, something that we've talked about before. We talk about the mammalian. So it's the reptile brain, mammalian brain, and the yep, human brain. And it's like the reptiles all about fight, flight, fornicate. That's like your base level survival. Then mammalians all about hierarchical needs. And then, as you're saying about the human brain or your wizard brain, most people don't realise that a lot of times they make decisions and they're not actually even. When people say you're out of your mind, they actually are out of their human mind. And so this is why it's very, very important. So reducing stress. I mean, stress and cortisol, they deplete acetylcholine. Is that right? I'm trying to think. And if
acetylcholine is important.
Acetylcholine, yeah. If I can say words today. And also reducing stress. If you start to reduce stress, can it repair the hippocampus, or is the damage already done?
Yeah, so it slows down the damage or stops the damage. There's been a lot of research on phosphatidylcholine.
Okay.
Phosphatidylcholine. Phosphatidylserine. Phosphatidylcholine is different. Phosphatidylserine for actually repairing that damage. It helps to bring down the cortisol levels, but it also helps to repair the hippocampus. Lots of studies on that. So that's a specific phosphorylated amino acid. Serine is an amino acid. Phosphorus is, part of phosphorylation. So it's basically this amino acid that has phosphorus attached to it in the simple terms. And it's an important nutrient. All the phosphatidylserine, choline, and ethanolamine, they're all super important in the brain for the nerves, like lining the nerve functions, protecting the nerves from damage. Mm-hmm. So it's a really important nutrients that a lot of people don't get. There's places you can get those nutrients, phosphatidylserine, choline, etc., and lecithin, foods that contain lecithin, sunflower seeds, soybeans, etc. You can take supplements of them. And usually when somebody's been in a stress state and they've had some brain fog and other things going on for a while, I'll talk to them about supplementation.
So the soy lecithin, soy and the sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
I think so. When you're getting sort of soy lecithin, sunflower seeds, a lot of people just quickly would be like, well, soy is bad for you, right? I mean, it's anti-nutrients, cancer, GMO, pesticides, etc. Is soy lecithin okay to take?
Yeah, if it's organic, non-GMO, yes, absolutely. And I don't think that, soy, the way it's used in the East is very different than here. And it's GMO. It's not organic. It's got so many anti-nutrients in it, and it's the way we eat it, right? If you take it and you make it into flour and you eat tons of tofu and you eat all these meat analogs and stuff, that's not a good way to use soy. But when you take it and you ferment it into natto or miso, those things are not the studies that show damaging effects of soy are all on the non-organic, potentially GMO, and not fermented soy. That's how the people in the East use it. Small amounts, condiment size. We're in the US and UK and all where more is better, right? And no, it's true. It's not true that more is better, but small amounts of fermented soy can be fine. I don't personally use it very often. I mean, I occasionally would have it, but I don't really eat it much. But natto is a great source of vitamin K2. It's nasty. It doesn't taste.
Yeah, a lot of people don't like it, right? But you can get your vitamin K2 from things like sauerkraut as well, fermented sauerkraut.
Yeah,
cool.
Mushrooms.
So with the soy lecithin and sunflower seeds, is this where you start talking about phospholipids?
Yes, so phospholipids are definitely a part, and I think they're part of brain fog. I think it's an important part of brain fog, and having that structure. Most people are totally fat imbalanced or fat deficient. I would say most people think, we eat a high-fat diet. How could we be fat deficient? But we're deficient in the right kinds of fats, and we have excesses of the wrong kinds of fats. And fats are super important for the brain. We need to, super low-fat diets are not great for brain health. Super high-fat diets aren't, and bad fat diets are not good for anybody. So hydrogenated fats, heated fats, oxidized fats, a higher percentage of omega-6 to omega-3. Those are really important for brain function and really important for good health of the brain and overcoming brain fog.
100%. I mean, you just mentioned that. I mean, that the brain's most of it is mostly cholesterol anyway, so you need the fats. And you're talking about, for example, eggs are another one that through the years have been given bad press, but eggs are brain food, right? I mean, they've got acetylcholine in them, and that's great for the brain. True? Or
they do, but there's also a problem with eggs.
Okay.
And I don't think eggs. Eggs were one of the things that actually discovered that were causing my headaches. But here's the thing. In a society where most kids are immunized as children,
right.
Egg albumin is one of the carriers that are used there. So think about that. You're injecting somebody with this substance with the goal of creating an immune reaction.
So when you said immunized, do you mean vaccinated?
Vaccinated,
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when that happens, we're initiating a response.
Right.
So you really have to be careful with eggs. They're among the top 6 allergens: gluten, dairy, corn, soy, eggs, and peanuts. Right? Those are the top 6, and maybe slightly different from country to country and society to society, but those are top 6, and you got to be really careful. And eggs, commercially purchased eggs are made from chickens that are cooped up, and they're not seeing the light of day. They don't have the nutrients that we think they do. So if someone is going to use eggs, first of all, make sure you're not allergic to them, which my opinion is you eliminate them for a month or so, and then you go back and you test with it. But then you really should only be eating eggs from, cage-free chickens that are fed organic feed and have a life, right? And they lay these beautiful, brown eggs that are not anemic and are not full of toxic residue. So we really have to be careful of that.
Yeah, I mean that's big for us. On the show, we'll talk about organic food, free range, grass fed if you can. I mean, chickens, they're not fed bread and grain. They should be eating bugs from the ground, and so 100%. So obviously, if you're going to eat, I mean, this is the other thing you mentioned there. So a lot of people have got allergies to food because they eat so much of it, and eggs is one of those food that you can see if people do eat them, they tend to eat them every day, so you can get a reaction to it. So, in your opinion, take them out and see how you respond when you go back on them. And when you do go back on them, make sure they're the highest quality that you can buy.
Right. Quality and in moderation. So for me, when I had, I was doing the egg, the headaches were intermittent, and I discovered that it wasn't happening when I ate one egg.
Right.
It was only when I ate an omelet or if I ate eggs several days in a row. And the headache was it was horrible, horrendous. I'd never want to go back. So I just avoid eggs altogether now.
Oh, okay. Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I know from personal experience that egg whites on their own, people who have egg white omelettes, egg whites on their own are one of the most allergenic foods on the planet. And generally when we start to introduce eggs back in, I generally get my clients to have just like an egg yolk omelette or scrambled egg yolks, so it's interesting. So taking them out for a while, that's it. I mean, but you're vegan now, right?
Yep.
So that would be one of the reasons why you don't eat eggs as well. So that's
I'm vegan from the standpoint of it being a religion. I'm vegan because I've chosen to take out the foods that I don't believe were serving me.
Yeah, no, so, interesting. Yeah. I just meant that's why you don't eat them. So when you went but you went vegan because of after your fasting, is that correct? You that was to help your health rehabilitation. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And how long have you been vegan for now?
Since 1985. So what's that? 32 years.
All right, long time. And it's all going well? Thriving?
I'm thriving.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now, I'll just say that because I do actually deal with with vegans. I actually have had to help some vegans come through some struggling times. But because of certain things with their ill health, it's been a bit depleted in certain nutrients that they weren't getting, and a lot of time also because they weren't able to. It's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about as well. Was you're talking about the fats, and especially omega-3 fats that people need or have for health. A lot of vegans they struggle to convert, get the conversion right from the plant omega-3.
Almost everybody struggles with that because there's a plethora of nutrients that are required that are completely deficient in the diet. And vegan doesn't mean you're healthy. Mm-hmm. You can be eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and fake egg omelet things. And I mean, there's all kinds of crap you could be eating as a vegan. Vegan doesn't mean anything. I'd rather call it whole food plant-based diet where, I call it a vegetable-based diet or based diet, because that's really what it is, because there's a lot of plants that you shouldn't be eating very much of. So there's a very big variety of people, of health amongst vegans. And I think that when you do this super low fat vegan diet and people are eating a lot of grain and a lot of bread and a lot of rice and, not a lot of vegetables and not a lot of fat. But here's the thing with the omega-6, the omega-3 conversion, it's called the elongation. You go from the short chains to the long chains, and the plant foods contain the short chains, and the enzyme that converts, that helps them to convert, has some cofactors that it needs in order to be efficient. So in order to do that, you need B vitamins, especially B12, B6, B3. Mm-hmm. You need a bunch of minerals, magnesium. You need zinc. Magnesium, you need biotin, you need vitamin C. All of those need to be in decent amounts in order for you to be able to do the elongation. And that's why it gets a bad rap. Eating plant sources of omega-3s are actually quite good if you're eating a diet that has the right amount of nutrients to be able to help them convert. But the truth of the matter is most people are eating refined foods. They're eating white rice. They're eating white bread. They're eating processed foods. And those take away from that conversion process. And there's not enough of the minerals in there. There's not enough of the vitamins in there because the food is refined, right? So when you are replete in those nutrients, you can take supplements of them while you're in the process of shifting the diet and making that improvement, then that goes up. I mean, there's studies that show that conversion can be up to 30%. There's 30% of the short chain gets converted, and there's other studies that show it could be 6%, right? So it's very variable based on people and sex and their overall state of health. So I think that getting good plant source of omega-3, but also making sure you have all those nutrients, and that making sure that you get plenty of it. And so it works for me. It works for my clients.
And so do they get it mainly through food, or do they need supplementation or something like maybe an algae-based supplement?
Yep. And I encourage people to eat algae. Most people don't eat algae. They're like, what am I going to do? That's the swamp. That's the stuff. Makes my pool look ugly. And I come in. But there are algae supplements. And an omega-3 from algae, and omega-3 oil from algae. Yeah. Because we're not all perfect, and we're not all going to eat the right ratios of everything every day.
No, of course not.
So it's very helpful. And I've seen it turn around rather quickly.
I always just say as well, if you could, and we could all get our nutritional from food, it'd be great. But unfortunately today we need some supplements because of just the nutrition quality of the food. I think there was a thing that said you'd have to eat 50 heads of lettuce to get the same nutrition as one head of lettuce, I think 20 or 30 years ago. So it just shows what we need to do. So also you mentioned there about B vitamins. When we talked about stress, I mean, stress is known to reduce B vitamins. So you think that's quite important for people to make sure they're getting B vitamins in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because stress just depletes it down. So it's important. It's very important. I like to do plant-based supplements that are concentrated foods, but sometimes you need to go with synthetics. I just am concerned about, various and sundry byproducts in synthetic supplements. Not that I don't use them with people, but we start with a base of good, concentrated food-based supplements.
Yeah. With B vitamins, I think when people are getting injections, I think they've got...
Very critical.
Yeah, very critical. Yeah, I mean, there's one that's got a cyanide molecule in it as well. I think it's cyanocobalamin, if I can say.
Oh, so cyanocobalamin. That's a vitamin B12. And the form that people mostly take are the cyano form, and it's not well absorbed, it's not well utilized, and it has the cyanide side chain that gets tested.
Yeah, exactly. It's not very good for your liver either. I think you can only take it for like 12 weeks because it starts to give liver problems as well. So, so ones that you'd recommend would be?
Well, if you're going to do B12, I'd recommend methylcobalamin, hydroxycobalamin, or adenosylcobalamin. And you got to be a little careful with the methyl and go slowly with the methyl, even though that's the best and most active form in the body. There are certain genetic types that will cause a backup of those methyl groups, and you got to just go slowly with people like that, especially people who are prone to anxiety and depression, because it can affect neurotransmitters if you have this specific genetic type and then you take too much of it. So I just am careful. Usually when I'm starting somebody, if they have a history of any kind of genetics of anxiety, then what I'll do, if I don't have their genetic testing to look at, then what I'll do is I'll generally start them with adenosine or hydroxy, and then tiny amounts of methyl until we get back their genetic testing.
Yeah, makes sense. And with the because I want to get to talk quickly about the adrenals and the thyroid. With the adrenals, I mean, how do they come into play? Is it basically to do with the cortisol connection we mentioned earlier?
Yep. Yeah, it totally has to do with that. Absolutely.
Cool. And with the thyroid, I mean, how can the thyroid cause brain fog? Is it to do with converting T4 and T3? I mean, go ahead. I mean, you know more about this than me.
Yeah, thyroid's a complex issue. The thyroid hormones control the metabolic rate of every cell in the body. So think about that. If the metabolic rate of the brain cells is slow because of low thyroid function, then what's going to happen is you're going to have brain fog. But the thing about thyroid, it is complicated because it's the actual active form of the of the thyroid hormone is free T3 if you were to measure it on a blood test. Well, most doctors don't even measure that. If they measure the TSH and they go, oh, you're fine, but they're not necessarily fine. That goes back to this conversion issue. And when you're under stress, the conversion from T4, which is the form that mostly what the thyroid makes a little T3. It has to get converted to T3 to be activated, but that that enzyme is very sensitive to stress. So high levels of cortisol or very low levels of cortisol will decrease the conversion from T4 to T3. And then more of it goes to reverse T3. And reverse T3 is like the brakes. And the reverse T3 does tend to raise when somebody's under chronic stress, when somebody's sick. Because if you're sick, you want to conserve energy. You don't want to have your body, revving at full throttle. You want to conserve that. So the brakes come on. And so we get more reverse T3, less free T3, and the cells tend to be, acting as if the thyroid isn't producing. Meanwhile, medicine is going, oh, well, you just need more T4. Here's more T4. They're not, which is Synthroid and levothyroxine. And in the meantime, people are going, the body's saying, I don't need more T4. I got plenty of it. And then it moves more of that T4 to reverse T3 and slows things down more. So it's this catch-22. So we really need to be looking at the thyroid as a full functioning, not just the thyroid gland itself, but all the other parts of the body that play in. So for example, that conversion from T4 to T3 happens, about 50% of it happens in the liver, about 25% in the digestive tract, a little bit in the kidneys and a little bit in the thyroid and other, peripheral parts of the body. Well, think about it. If somebody's digestion is messed up, which most people's are because they're eating crappy food all the time and they're, eating lots of gluten and dairy and things that are struggling it out, they're under stress, then what happens is that they're going to have less of a conversion. The liver, we're in a toxic world. The liver's working overtime, right? So it may not be helping to do that conversion as well. Plus deficiencies, selenium deficiency, magnesium deficiency, those all play in because those are important cofactors for making the T4 turn into T3s. You see, it's a complicated issue. And all of that leads to brain fog. And one thing we haven't mentioned at all that leads to brain fog is blood sugar imbalance, right?
Right.
People
I was actually going to this. I mean, is this? Sorry, go ahead. Blood sugar imbalance, but this is why I was talking about the people in the morning who are just having like croissants or bagels or even a big bowl of porridge. Right? This is bad news for them.
Right. Absolutely. And see, what people think about is that when the blood sugar goes low, we have brain fog. But a lot of times it's because somebody has excess blood sugar and they've become insulin resistant. And when I was in school, we learned that the brain cells don't become insulin resistant. They could just we don't need insulin to get sugar into the brain cells. All we have to do is just allow the brain to function and it grabs the glucose right from the blood. Well, now research is showing that indeed there is a requirement for insulin in the brain to pull in the glucose and the brain cells become insulin resistant. So you want to talk about the ultimate brain fog, if you will, Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's, right? You can't remember anything. You just talk to your son and now you're saying, who are you, right? That's Alzheimer's. The memory is impaired. And we're now talking about Alzheimer's being insulin resistance of the brain or even type 3 diabetes.
Type 3 diabetes,
right? So that's a big thing. And maintaining steady blood sugar levels, maintaining good receptors on the cells. Those receptors for insulin get damaged by the hydrogenated fats. They get damaged by excess sugar because the body's going, no, too much. I mean, there's all sorts of chemicals in the environment, pesticides, et cetera. All of those things play in to development of insulin resistance. And when that happens in the brain, boy, that memory and that brain fog is severe.
Right. I mean, this is for some people. So I'm going to give you two examples here. For some people, they won't feel like they've got they won't feel like they'd be able to work until they've had something to eat. Like if they're in a fasted state, there as soon as they have food or so they have some eggs maybe or whatever it's a breakfast, if it's a good healthy breakfast, and they feel, oh my god, I can start to think again. For myself, I'm almost clearer of mind. I've got more energy, etc. When I'm actually in a fasted state, I try to fast every day till 2 o'clock. So why would that be? What are the two things causing some people to have better brain function on food and others to have it better when they're in a fasted state?
That's a great question, and I'm with you. I feel much better in a fasting state. I've actually I measure my own glucose. I teach people how to measure their own glucose. I think it's not just for diabetics. It's actually a really good tool to help you establish what your body should be doing and what you should be eating. But why do some and not? So when you can quickly shift to just burning fat for fuel, you are going to feel better when you're not eating, or fine when you're not eating. I don't know about better, but fine when you're not eating, because your body just says, oh, well, let's just convert some of that hip flesh into brain fuel, right? But some people can't do that. And some of it has to do with genetics. Some of it has to do with there's a long history of this high glycemic food. So people who switch to eating lower on the glycemic scale, and we could talk about the glycemic index for hours. I don't, I think it's kind of a weird thing, but it gives us a general guideline, right? So if someone is not adapted and can't really adapt to that, and their blood sugars are going, there's some issues with their liver. There's another hormone that nobody talks about that gets secreted by the pancreas called glucagon, and nobody talks about that. The glucagon helps us to keep the blood sugar steady. So there's people who are they're overproducing insulin. There's too much sugar ending up getting into fat storage, and then boom, the blood sugar drops, and then the body doesn't know how to use fat for fuel at that point. Now, they could adapt to it if they allowed themselves to feel it. Here's the thing about hunger. There's a lot of folks that have been conditioned that hunger is evil and we should never feel hunger at all costs. And as soon as you feel it, you need to do something about it. And in reality, when we feel hunger, there's actually some really nice metabolic processes going on. Stomach secretes ghrelin. Ghrelin actually triggers growth hormone. Growth hormone then triggers us to burn fat and store lean. So there's some good things happening when we're hungry. And I always tell people, it's like an itch. It's like an itch that's in a place where it's not polite to scratch in public. You just don't do it. You just deal with it, right?
Yeah, that's a great. I mean, I always say to my guys, like when we first mostly we get them health first, and we put them into intermittent fasting later to give it a go. Most of them they love it. And I say, look, you get hungry for 10, 15 minutes, then it goes away.
Yeah, drink water. I always tell people, when you feel hunger, the first thing you should do is drink some water, because most of the time it's thirst. Most of us are so thirsty all the time, nobody's drinking enough water. Yep. So you start with that, and then you wait a half an hour. And then at a half an hour, you go, oh, am I still hungry? A lot of times you just forget about it.
100%.
Or you deal with it, right? Like I get hungry sometimes. I stay up and I'm working, and it's like, 11, 12 o'clock. It's been 6, 7 hours since I've eaten anything. And I get hungry and I go, really? You're going to eat it this hour? That's not very good for you. And I have to just talk myself down and go, you can deal with this. Just go to bed, just go to go away. Now, different people are in different states of their metabolism. You got to go more slowly. And if you work with people with intermittent fasting, I'm sure you see that some people take to it like that, and it's simple and easy. And other people, you have to gradually just increase the space between the meals. And gradually doing it allows the body to adapt. I love intermittent fasting. I mean, I do a form of intermittent fasting just about every day. I just usually don't eat until, 12 o'clock in the afternoon or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I leave 14 to 18 hours between my meals. But the other kind of intermittent fasting, which I really like, is just doing that 24-hour fast once a week or twice a week. And I've seen it drop people's weight dramatically. Right? People that are overly thin and have a high metabolic rate maybe have to be a little bit more careful with that. And
I'm giving you a virtual high five right now, Rita.
Good.
I'm giving you a virtual high five, 100%. I completely understand. It's just because we've been, as you said before, been programmed to think that as soon as we get hungry, you need to go and eat everything. And because it's a shop that's open 24/7 all the time now, people can just go and eat whenever they want.
They can, and it's killing us. I mean, the availability of food like that is killing us. In the olden days, people ate when the animals, the people, you ate when there was food available, and there wasn't always food available. So the body gets adapted to that. And now we just we feed ourselves all the time. And the whole thing where people teach, you have blood sugar problems, you have to eat every 2 hours. That's the worst thing for blood sugar problems. The very worst. You're in a state of constant insulin in the system. Insulin's a fat storage hormone, right? And it suppresses growth hormone. So if you're working out and you want to build muscle, go ahead and eat every 2 hours and you'll never build muscle, because it's just ridiculous. I mean, there's some rare people who will, but for the average person, it's just going to suppress it because it's low growth hormone, high insulin. What are you going to do? Store fat.
Yeah. I even after I work out, I don't eat for. I mean, I'm like you. I don't eat until about 1, 2 o'clock, and I usually work out in the morning. And I used to eat straight away afterwards, and now I don't eat for an hour. It's just because you said high growth hormones release, so is leptin. I mean, all these hormones that are doing their job. It's imperative, and yeah, I mean, I think it's just, and now you talk about craving, as you said before, when people are stressed, and as I said, they're in their reptile brain, or as you said, lizard brain. Straight away, comfort. We've been programmed comfort when we're young. We start crying. Our mum puts the breast there. We've got sugary like milk substance. So now we what gets fire together gets wired together. So we start thinking, oh my God, sugar equals sort of comfort. So we go to the fridge. Or even if you're looking at other things like parasites, these things crave foods. If you've got a gut full of parasites, they're craving food, especially in the evening. They want their sugar and all other things. But so we've learned. So because I think I could have you on for 3 hours here, Rita, but we won't. So we've mentioned things that can help with brain fog. So we've gone soy lecithin, sunflower lecithin, reducing your stress, obviously cortisol, making sure it's in balance, B vitamins, omega-3s, real food, looking into your thyroid and adrenal health, protein, like even fasting, intermittent fasting, if you can, protein for breakfast rather than carbohydrates. And then there's a few other things that you've mentioned on your site. I mean, one of the big things we talk about is sleep. I mean, sleep's going to be hugely important, right?
Huge. Yeah, hugely important, because if that's during the night is when the body cleanses itself. You do all the stuff during the day, you go to sleep, and all these, metabolic waste products get dissipated and broken down. And if you don't, then how do people feel? I mean, think about this. If you've been up for a long time, you've had a long day, you don't feel as alert and, sharp as you did in the morning. You do. Your brain starts to get foggy. Now you go to sleep, it clears out. Now, if you're not getting enough sleep, you're going to have that slight foggy feeling all the time, because you don't give your body the opportunity to break things down.
And I mean, it's like the brain almost washes itself when it's asleep. It's very, very important. Other things that you've got. I mean, I could go on all day about. We can do a whole show on sleep. It's you can throw parasitic herbs at people or supplements at people, but if you don't get enough sleep, your immune system will never reach its full potential, and your hormones will never regulate, and you'll just be like a dog chasing its tail, and it becomes an expensive game. So sleep, I didn't mean to brush over it. Sleep's critical.
It's totally.
Yeah, and so I mean,
critical. Yeah. Well, and if we tend to look for nutrition, like what supplement, what herb, what's the fancy thing, we're going back to the same pitfalls that medicine is doing with the this for that approach. Yeah. And it's not like that. We need to look first at the foundational habits that people have. Right. And sleep is one of them. Stress is another one. Food is another one. Keeping moving, oxygenation. The brain isn't getting enough oxygen. Right. Then, and if you're just sitting around shallow breathing, being stressed all day and not moving, that's going to affect you. That's going to impact you. So we really just need to go to the basics. Yeah, there's great herbs and there's great supplements and there's all kinds of great things we can do, and a lot of times need to do because of the depleted soils and the toxic environment. But we really, you cannot take a pill, whether it's a supplement, whether it's an herb, a superfood, an omega-3, whatever, that makes up for bad habits. It supplements good habits. Nothing that you can take is going to make up for bad habits.
Nice. Also, I mean, it's just hit every single nail on the head there. I mean, there's a few other things you've got on your site as well. Just because I just want to mention them because they could seem quite cool. Heart math. What's heart math? Just for the guys out there.
Yeah, heart math is my favorite technique for keeping those cortisol levels down, to de-stress. So it's basically a combination of deep breathing like you would do during a yoga class or meditation, and appreciation. And so I teach it to people. I teach people stuff that they can do in a minute or two, because I don't have the patience. I'm finally built up to meditating 20 minutes a day. This is the first time forever that I do that consistently, because I don't have the patience to say, I'm like, I got to go do this. I got to do that. So with heart math, you basically can take a break. You stop, you focus on your breathing. And usually I put my right hand over my left hand over my belly, or my right hand over my heart. So I'm focused, and I'll go, And do big, deep breath in, long, slow exhale, full exhale. And then I call it mini vacation. So it's my variation of heart math. I like go on a mini vacation. I go, where can I go where I feel fantastic, where I feel safe? For me, it's a beach, right? Sitting in the ocean, not just sitting and watching it, but in the water, being surrounded by this beautiful water and the sand and the sounds. And I just recreate that in my brain. And the cool part about our nervous systems is that we can recreate situations. And the brain thinks you're there. So it recreates the chemistry of that. So what is the chemistry of bliss? What is the chemistry of appreciation? What is the chemistry of relaxation? It just sources all these wonderful nutrients and enzymes and hormones that just surge and make you feel good. Oxytocin, all that. And so we get that feeling in an instant. And we can do that multiple times a day. And that's what heart math is. And my variation on it, I call it a mini vacation. I just go, okay, I'm going to the beach. So if something's happening that's stressful, I just go, I'm there. I can do it in one breath because like you said about wiring before that, I think that like glossed over for a lot of folks because you went through that quickly, but that rewiring, that rewiring, we're rewiring stress to be helpful. So if I practice this before I get the stressful situation, that's the key. But then every time there's a stressful situation, like, oh my God, I have a webinar happening in 2 minutes and I've got, 5,000 people registered and my power just went out. What am I going to do? Right? I take my breath, I take that and instantly, anytime something stressful like that happens, well, not 100% because I'm human and not perfect, but when something stressful happens, I just go, okay. And what happens with that is my brain, my forebrain, the wizard brain takes over and says, okay, here's what you can do. Go downstairs. You've got a laptop. Okay, pull out the laptop and log in with the laptop. Or if it's something like the code was wrong and I'll go, and I go, wait a minute. Oh, I can do this or I can do that because I can activate my resourceful brain to be able to help me out of that bag.
So basically, in layman's terms, what it's doing is once again putting you back in the nervous system that you need to be relaxed.
Right.
And it's doing it nice and quickly. So it's de-stressing. It's getting you out of your lizard brain back into your wizard brain, so you can start to think more clearly.
Exactly. And it's the nervous system you implied, the sympathetic versus parasympathetic.
Yeah, sympathetic. Yeah.
Right. Sympathetic is that fight, flight. What am I going to do? And then you go, now I'm in parasympathetic, and parasympathetic is where everything's working really well. My digestion
rest
working.
and digest. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I go, oh, here's what I can do. Yeah, there's times you need to be in sympathetic, like if there is a tiger chasing you, and if you are stuck in a situation where you need to do quick moves. Yeah, absolutely. It's there to protect us.
Yeah, but most people are in it 24/7, right?
24/7. We're not intended to be in there 24/7. No way.
Cool. And so because I know you've got to go in a minute. So Rita's also got a book on her site called Transforming Stress, which you can have a look at. Also, like we do in a lot of our programs, you recommend turn off the news and social media. I mean, I can't ever think why. Why would you want to do that? Everything on the news is so upbeat, yeah?
Right. Right. If you want to be in sympathetic mode, you're sitting there and you're helpless because this stuff is happening. And if we think about, we have this electronic age and we know what's happening every place in the world. Mm-hmm. And our nervous systems aren't designed for that. Mm-hmm. We're not designed to be able to take on the problems and the stresses of every person around the world. And we're loving people and we want to help. And then you feel helpless because you can't help this family over here or this over here. You feel bad about the murders, and then you get scared. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. And guess what? The news is made to scare you.
No,
guys.
No, you're conspiracy theorists. I don't believe you.
But you know what?
I'm joking with you. I do believe you. Of course I do. I know. It's all a load of rubbish, most of it. It's funny because it's weird, Rita. The more, I think it's everyone I talk to is in the natural health world is into what we're into. They're all into, not conspiracy theories, they're all into the truth, and it's amazing. I think that the clearer your mind is, and the more you're on a higher vibrational frequency, and the more you just start to see the world for what it really is. And I think doing a news detox, I mean, all it does, I see my dad every day, he reads the paper, he gets wound up. I'm like, why are you reading the paper for? Just relax.
Yeah.
There's no need.
Yeah.
It's just, all it's done is just wound you up straight away in the morning. It's got you angry. Put the paper down.
Yeah, you start your day that way. Yeah. That's really bad.
Yeah. And so I've got him. He's not reading it anymore, which is great. And the other one, I mean, I know you've got to go, but the other one, you've also got Get Off Gluten. You could probably spend all day on that one.
You can spend a day on that one.
So just for different people, where would they start? I mean, it's different for everyone, or is it just eat real food and just reduce your stress? What would you say?
So start with figuring a thing that you can transform your stress, and make a pact with yourself that you're only going to eat food that's real. Okay, that's not packaged, that's not full of things you can't pronounce, that's not loaded with sugar, because sugar's in food, but if it's added sugar, and now the labels show you if is it added sugar or natural sugar, right? So if you buy a package, if they were to package grapes or bananas or apples or whatever, and they put the label on it, the nutrition label, which would be a cool thing to do, you would see that there's a fair amount of sugar in grapes or bananas and apples, but added sugar would be zero, right? So it's really a matter of finding out the right foods for you. So start with just real. Just start with real. I'm not a big oil fan, because I think oils are just like white flour. It's an extracted food. Not that I don't, sometimes use it for a decadent culinary experience, but it's not real.
You crack me up. A decadent culinary experience. I like that. Yeah, I enjoy a decadent culinary experience as much as the next man, I think. That's good. Yeah. But
we have to really look at what's the health benefits. So, I sometimes use oils therapeutically, right? So people who are very high metabolic rate need to keep it on, but we're trying to do a cleanse or a fast. I may get them on some MCT oil or coconut oil or whatever, flax oil. But the point is, it's just as fractured a food as white flour. You've removed all the nutritional components and just left the fat.
So would you cook your food in if you were having a
I want to do stir fry?
Yeah. So if you were cooking some food, what would you cook in?
Put some broth or some water in the pan and stir fry it that way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'd say most coconut oil would be a big one for most people, but you'd put some broth or some water in.
I'm not saying I never use coconut oil, don't get me wrong, but I really feel like you've got to be careful about heating your oils, because they oxidize.
Yeah.
So there's certain oils, coconut being one of them, that have a higher oxidation point. But you've got to be careful about that, because oxidative byproducts are causing free radical damage and are hurting every cell in your body. So I'm not a big fan of oil. Yeah, like for super thin people who are losing weight like crazy on a whole foods diet.
So what if you used it? What if you used it over your salads, a bit of olive oil, and then you're not heating it? Then you're not.
I make dressings. I take nuts or seeds or avocado or whole coconut, shredded coconut or whole coconut. I put it in the blender with vegetables and herbs, and I make my own salad dressings.
Right.
So tahini with lemon juice and some, salt and cayenne and cumin and turmeric and those sorts of things. So there's all kinds of ways that you can make whole food salad dressings that are phenomenal and loaded with nutrition.
Awesome. Rita, I know you've got to go, so just quickly, you've got lots of programs on your website. I said before, guys, www.ritamarie.com. Lots of programs on there. Anything you've got going on, or you want to talk about that the guys know?
Yeah, so we do. I do a program called the Sweet Spot Solution. Keep an eye on that, because we're going to be doing some. We're going to be opening up some specials on that soon. But it's basically where you can get your blood sugar in balance. But really, it's an overall health overhaul, but focused on getting the blood sugar in balance. And we promote it with, it helps you with belly fat, brain fog, and burnout. Like, who doesn't have those things, unless they're already doing what I'm recommending, right? Yeah. So we help people to optimize your blood sugar by testing it yourself, or, you really teach people and empower people on how to understand how that body is working. And so what steps to take to make it happen. And we've had amazing results. We've put over 1,000 people through that program, and the kinds of results we've gotten over the years have been nothing short of amazing.
Awesome. And that's Sweet Spot?
TheSweetSpotSolution.com. TheSweetSpotSolution.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Rita, it's been a pleasure. If you just hang on the line there, I'll just close out the show. Guys, that's going to be it for Dr. Ritamarie. And as I said, any questions, give me a shout and we'll get them over to her. But that's it for this episode, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode.
So, guys, that was episode 44 of Dr. Ritamarie Loscalzo. Hope you really enjoyed that. I think we got deep into it, the subject. I mean, you went through all the different things you can do, a whole list of them there for you. Go through them, write them down. But brain fog's a real big issue. A lot of people suffer from it, and it's not normal. As we say, I keep on want to reiterate this quite a bit, and that is just because it's normal. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal. So many people walking around have different ailments going on, thinking that it's okay, everyone's got something, but that is not normal. It's just common. Okay, guys? So that's it for episode 44. As always, head on over to www.reviveyourself.co. Join the 4-day free mini course we've got there for you. That's going to teach you all about what you need to do to get rid of any chronic health issue. And we're on Facebook at Facebook.com/Revive Yourself Natural Health, Instagram and YouTube. Otherwise, guys, that's it for today. I'll see you next week when we'll be interviewing Dr. William Davis all about wheat and his book Wheat Belly. So until then, have a great week. If it's Christmas time, enjoy Christmas, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
If you're struggling with gut issues, such as gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, indigestion, heartburn, and want to finally be able to eat the foods you love without the crippling after effects, then don't forget to head over to reviveyourself.co and pick up your free copy of The Healing Health Paradigm today.